So my perspective on boundaries has really evolved over time.
Mhm.
Earlier in my career, I felt like I needed to say yes to everything to prove myself.
Yeah.
Now I see boundaries and protecting my energy actually as my superpower.
Mhm.
Because when I have set the boundaries and I protect my mental health, I protect my sleep, I have the energy to do what I'm supposed to do very well. And
Yeah.
so it's less about saying no for the sake of it and more about being more intentional with my time and energy. And
Mhm.
so for me, it's like I confidently set boundaries based on what my priorities are. And so it's like I
Mhm.
put in my priorities before, and everything else falls around that.
Hello and welcome to the Field Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Crook. I've got a new friend here with me today. Nathalie Walton is here with me, and we friends are talking about sleep. Sleep, sleep, sleep. This is at the top of my mind right now. And I told Nathalie this when we had a Google Meet to get to know each other last week, that my sleep has been terrible since the summer of 2022. I've had a variety of things done. I've had a nasal surgery. I've had an inconclusive sleep test. I've tried all the noise apps and the meditations and the sounds. And I don't eat, I am always done eating well before 8 o'clock. I mean, all the things they tell you to do. I work out every day. I really watch my macros and all these things. So I've been going through all these things. Like, what is going on with my sleep? And they're like, well, you don't really fit the profile of sleep apnea. And I'm like, surprise, I'm a menopausal woman. I absolutely, yes, I do. And that's one of the things that Nathalie does work with, is that there's a lot of misunderstandings about how sleep affects women, and bringing those to the forefront of this conversation. So we're going to get into that today. And so anytime I see anything about sleep, I'm like, come on, somebody help me out. But one of the things we're also going to talk about is sleep is like going to be like an $89 billion industry by 2030, which is insane. It's very competitive. It can be very expensive. I'll use myself as an example. They finally determined in the fall that I have three things going on with my that are affecting my sleep: restless leg syndrome, trouble falling asleep, and mild to moderate sleep apnea. And at first we're like, well, you don't really fit the profile for that. I'm like I said, no, I am not a diabetic obese man. That does not mean I cannot have this going on with me. And so a lot of these narratives around sleep and who has sleep troubles and what the problems are and how they present, we need to course correct on as well. So I have a great holistic integrative medicine doctor here that's tried a lot of different things with me. And she's like, we're going to send you to Stanford Sleep Clinic. I'm very fortunate. I only live 2.5 hours from Stanford, so I can get access to that pretty easily. However, surprise, and this is something else Nathalie's going to talk about today, the cost piece is my insurance isn't covering my visit to the sleep facility at Stanford, even though my doctor has much documentation on how necessary this is for me. So I have to pay for it out of pocket. Fortunately, I have a great FSA card plan, but I've already told my husband a third of our FSA card this year is going to go towards me going to this appointment at the sleep place. If I didn't have that, I would have to come up with that money out of pocket, which is not readily available right now. So then there's this whole access issue. But so we're going to talk about all those things today. But before we jump into this and get started, Nathalie describes herself as intentional and ascending. Nathalie Walton, welcome to the Field Podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this conversation. So let's get right into it. I first want to get to know you and how you got here in working in this very important, very vital topic, because sleep impacts every part of our health. I mean, we sprung forward a few weeks back. I'm recording this in March, and there was a whole media blitz that week about how strokes and heart attacks go up that week just from that 1 hour shift in time. So we know sleep has a huge impact on our health. Talk to me about your self-care, the role that sleep plays in that, but just also your overall journey of understanding the importance of prioritizing your health and wellness.
Yeah, so my journey to better sleep and my sleep journey, it is a deeply personal one. It's one actually that begins with my son who struggled. Well, I discovered that he struggled with sleep apnea at the age of 4. And so this was after taking him to over 40 doctor's appointments in a span of 3 months. I was able to uncover that he wasn't getting oxygen to his brain when he was sleeping. And as a result, I mean, of him not doing this, I thought he had a very, very severe mental health condition. Like I thought perhaps he's
Yeah.
schizophrenic or, it's something that was incurable because he would act in such a way that it was such a deep concern, and it turns out
Yeah.
he wasn't getting enough sleep. And so my journey here is very personal. It was in how do I
Yeah.
support my son, and then it turned out I wasn't sleeping. So like
Mm.
you with like mentioning that you have restless leg syndrome and everything that you had, turns out I've been struggling with sleep since I gave birth in 2019, and that's a very
Oh, wow.
common thing is that oftentimes after postpartum you don't recover from your sleep. And it turns out, I was told, oh, it's because you're a new mom. Of course you're not sleeping, or it's because you're a founder running a company that you're not sleeping. No, actually, it turns out that 5 years after the fact, I discovered that I was anemic and that I
Oh,
needed iron.
wow.
And after getting the iron that I needed, I turned into a whole new person. And so all that is to say is that for my journey to sleep is a personal one. And as a result, I had to get
Yeah.
deeply rooted into the science, the why behind it, which really led me to wanting to run this company, BetterSleep, because I
Yeah.
know that when you're struggling with sleep, it's so hard to get to the root cause of why. And I wanted
Yeah.
to make that easier for everyone else so they don't have to suffer in the way that I did.
Yeah, and we're going to talk more about that because it's an app and people can get access to it. It's got a ton of resources on there. It's got a few things I haven't tried that I'm going to be trying in terms of helping me fall asleep. But yeah, I know when you and I talked and you told me last week and you told me about your son, I'm like, oh my gosh, we thought that menopausal women weren't getting attention about this. Here's this 4-year-old kiddo. I mean, poor, my gosh, at this pivotal moment of his development and growing. And because it's not just the sleep, it's the lack of oxygen to the brain that's happening as the sleep is being a problem. I mean, that is a big deal at any age, but it's a 4-year-old. I mean, so I think also taking these expectation or stereotype or stereotype or stigma away from who can have these sleep issues, whether it's apnea or other things, that we quit putting this mark on it. And also too, I slept like a champ until 4 years ago, summer of 2022. I was a champion sleeper. I never struggled. My husband had to nudge me when the babies woke up and needed feeding. Like I slept like a champ. So also it can come out of nowhere. If you would have told me 5 years ago that I was going to have an issue with sleep, I'm like, oh, no. Sleep is my thing. I love sleep and I'm so good at it. So it also, it can happen and it's more common than we think, but also feeling like there's accessible resources to it. I want to talk about healthy boundaries around sleep. The sleep app talks a lot about this. You probably had to create this too, not only for yourself, but for your son. So talk to me about the importance of healthy boundaries when it comes to our sleep and the things that support us.
Yeah. So my perspective on boundaries has really evolved over time.
Mhm.
Earlier in my career, I felt like I needed to say yes to everything to prove myself.
Yeah.
Now I see boundaries and protecting my energy actually as my superpower.
Mhm.
Because when I have set the boundaries and I protect my mental health, I protect my sleep, I have the energy to do what I'm supposed to do very well. And so
Yeah.
it's less about saying no for the sake of it and more about being more intentional with my time and energy. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, it's like I confidently set boundaries based on what my priorities are. And so it's like I
Mm-hmm.
put in my priorities before, and everything else falls around that. So for example, like
Yeah.
I exercise 5 days a week. That is on my calendar. Everything else falls
Mm-hmm.
around behind that. I
Yeah.
also get 8 hours of sleep most nights. Like actually
Mm-hmm.
last week, I slept 10 hours on a weekday. Like, I mean, how
Oh,
I went to bed at 8 o'clock, but and
it's
so it's
great.
like it's rare too. But it's like
Yeah.
if you what's important is knowing what your superpower is. For me, it's being
Yeah.
sharp and focused. I make a lot of decisions, or I make few decisions, but the decisions I make are big ones. And so it's really important that I'm well rested. So that's how I think about setting boundaries is I set my life around what is most important to me, and then everything else can fill in around then.
Yeah, that is so key. What you just said there about getting that in your calendar and everything else works around that, those non-negotiables. Like, I'm not given on this because I know if I do, I will not be of service to me in a healthy way or anyone else around me. No one wins when I don't
Mm-hmm.
do that. I love that. I talk to, when I work with women all the time, I'm like, the first thing that goes into your calendar is how are you taking care of you each day? What does that look like? Let's get that in first because we put the things in our calendar that we value. And it's got to start with us. Thank you. It's such a good example there. We talk a lot about mental, emotional, physical health connections. Sleep fits squarely into this and how it impacts that. Talk to me more about the impact of sleep on our mental, emotional, physical health. This is something that you really talk about a lot in terms of how this impacts women, especially. But talk to me about this. This is a big one.
Yeah. So emotional health, it's often overlooked, even
Yeah.
though it impacts everything. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of the work that I've done across reproductive health, postpartum, and now sleep, it comes back to the same theme. People often they feel unseen during difficult moments. That's something I've experienced too. But for me, it starts with awareness and actually taking the time to notice what I'm feeling instead of pushing past it. And I try to build space to reflect, whether that's through quiet time, mindfulness, or just stepping away. I'm also very intentional about sharing what I'm going through. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason I think that that's important is that it helps normalize that for others. It's part of the reason why I share
Yeah.
this sleep journey with you. Like, I mean, I talk about how I actually had sleep apnea in my third trimester. And like maybe that's something, someone is embarrassed to talk about because it's like, do you really want to share that you're snoring? But it's like I didn't realize, but when I share that, I realized, oh, it's actually a really common thing. And so all
Mm-hmm.
that is to say is like in terms of how I take care of my emotional mental health, it's like finding that time to care for myself, finding those quiet moments, and also being vulnerable and sharing it with others. Because when you do that, you not only take away the stigma from other people, but also then you get the tools of like, oh, there's ways that you can solve that. Like for you, I'm sure that when you share your struggles, like people come to you and they're like, well, I experienced this, or here's another solution. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that that is a really beautiful tool, and like helping you, vulnerability is also a tool in helping you with your emotional health.
Absolutely. And that goes perfectly into showing up unapologetically for yourself and other people. When you share what you're going through, it opens the door that you're a safe space to others. And it helps them to, oh, wow, me too. Oh, I thought I was the only one. It's a very invitational space to like, yes, let's have these conversations. What you said about that third trimester piece in sleep apnea, most people don't hear that. Most people don't know that. That can open the door to like, oh my gosh, that explains so much. Or it gives us an idea of questions that we should be asking because so many times the practice of medicine is a practice. It's not perfect. And they're not, and there's a lot of stereotypes out there that exist within it, depending on who you have access to and what they came up with, what their training and background is. And so being armed yourself with those questions, but first knowing Okay, if I by sharing with Nathalie, I know I'm not going to get gaslit. She understands. She's been through that. She's walked this journey. I feel like too, with the work that you offer now through your work at BetterSleep, it is just such an invitational way to continue that conversation and like, let's come on, let's talk about this. Let's expose this. Let's create sustainable and affordable options for people. So talk to me about your move to BetterSleep, what led to that, and what it offers and how it can help women who maybe they don't have the budget to do things that so many times they're hearing. I mean, the amount of money, it drives me crazy because capitalism plays on the things that we're suffering with, the things that we are insecure about, and sleep is square in the middle of that. So tell me about your journey in getting to BetterSleep and how it can support and help women.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, my journey to better sleep, it is a personal one, and it is like
Yeah.
it came through the suffering that I went through. I mean, from me thinking, oh, something is maybe off with my son, to actually getting him in a CPAP, that was 8 months. And that
Wow.
was with like a mama bear on the phone saying, like, I'm not going to accept this 6-month wait list, like calling
Yeah.
every day,
Yeah.
sending cookies to the people that are like taking the appointments. And so that how I got there was that I realized as a human, as someone living in an American healthcare system, that it's like you could be struggling and not get the answers and like have to go to 5, 10, 15 doctors or like, different points of view to get that help care that you need. And so when I saw this opportunity that Better Sleep was a content app that does an excellent job actually at helping people fall asleep through their content. But so before Better Sleep, I was a co-founder of a company called Expectful, also in the meditation and mindfulness space for pregnancy and fertility. So I had experience there.
Yeah.
And it was through my experience in getting a solution for my son and myself that I realized, Better Sleep would be a fantastic entry point for people that are struggling with sleep. We can give them some like temporary, also long-term solutions,
Sure.
but for people, some people have deeper sleep issues like myself. I mean, if you are anemic, there's only so much that an app can do for you. Like I needed an iron transfusion for my son. There is no meditation that can like get him oxygen in his brain. He needed a
Right.
mask to pump air into him. And so my hope and my vision for coming to Better Sleep is like, wow, we got this incredible traffic. We can support people with our meditation, our mindfulness, and our content. That's like the first, that is our first plan of attack. And we do help millions of people with that. But I wanted to go a level deeper to solve a very systemic problem. And so the next layer that we're building on right now is the ability to really help you understand more about your sleep. So we have a sleep recorder on our app, and the sleep recorder can actually tell you, like, are you snoring? And so it could be a first line of defense if like maybe you don't feel comfortable going to a doctor yet, or you need further proof. Like you can download our app and we can tell you this. And as like we build in more technology, we'll be able to help you understand, oh, maybe you have other sleep conditions. And then the third layer is, so Better Sleep is owned by Teladoc and BetterHelp. What I want to do is help connect people to the actual care if they need the care outside of the sleep ecosystem. So clearly mental health and sleep go hand in hand. Like maybe you are struggling with your mental health and, we can connect you with a therapist at BetterHelp to help you get sleep. Or we've also partnered with sleep apnea partners. So like, let's say you come to our app, you're using us for the meditations, you use our sleep recorder and you're like, oh man, I snore. You can see that like we partner with sleep apnea companies where you can get a virtual care, insurance covered sleep apnea test mailed to you. You don't have to pay a thing, and like you can get the treatment. And so my goal is to build that out across the entire sleep ecosystem of all of the challenges that people might have. And then, help people get better sleep forever. Because if you're what it's like. If you're really not sleeping, you're not living. And I know what that feels like. And want to eradicate that problem.
Oh, I thank you for laying that all out. That is so, it's like, oh my gosh, wow. And it's really kind of a one place to go. I can go here and get all these resources, get all of this help. I'm glad you mentioned the mental health stuff, because if you haven't been diagnosed, and let's say you're dealing with anxiety or bipolar disorder and you're in mania, I mean, that can really, that your sleep, you don't sleep. You don't sleep, but if you don't have the diagnosis to work with, to understand, just there's the iron piece that you talked about. There's so many layers and pieces that go into it that if you can oh, wow, my insurance is going to cover this. They're going to give me what I need. I don't have to wait, because the other thing we run into so many times with these specialists is you have to wait so many months. And it's like, I cannot wait another day. That's how I've been feeling as I'm getting ready to do what I'm doing in a few weeks, is like, I got 2 hours and 13 minutes of sleep last night. None of it deep sleep. Now that's an extreme night.
No.
Most nights. So the fact that you and I are having this conversation today was very timely. But also most nights I'm in that 6 to 7 hour range, but only 2 to 30 minutes of it, and is deep sleep, and the rest is a light sleep. And so even when I'm getting those hours, I'm not getting a quality sleep. So having mechanisms in your hand, essentially, that can give you that information and help you make decisions quicker in a way that you can afford. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. That is really impactful and important. In terms of your why around this is very clear. We've already discussed that. And your values in that you care for women and people so well and want them to have this information. At what point did you realize you wanted to go down this road? You were you talked about your work before. You clearly care about women's health and meditation and wellness. Is there a specific trajectory that we haven't talked about yet at a young age that you were younger age, you're still very younger age, that led you to this is an area I think we need to talk about more?
So when I look back at the pattern of my life, or at least actually the pattern since having a child 6 years ago, I think there's something that's miraculous about when you have a child, and it's you're spending your time, if you choose to work, it's you're spending your time away from your child. And for me, it was wow, my time really needs to matter. I can no longer spend my time working on selling someone something that they don't need. And so I had a shift as I became a mother. And I was I want to spend my time solving really meaningful problems. And so the first problem that I solved was, how do you support people who are struggling in fertility and postpartum and new motherhood? That was clearly an underserved area that I felt I intimately knew. So I tackled that problem. And I think, honestly, it's as I grew out of that stage, I was well, what is the next problem I'm going to solve? And it just kind of, fortunately or unfortunately, it fell into my lap. It's
it did.
You're looking for a symbol. It's okay, well, it's going to be sleep. And so that's really the path, was just the shift in my values, that I wanted to spend my time focusing on really something mission oriented. And I kind of actually didn't have a say in any of them. It just came to me. It
was very, very personally linked. And I think too, it's being open to that too. As sometimes as women, we kind of get locked in on our thing. I'm be open to the opportunities that are in front of you, and the things that look like challenges. What can you learn, and how do you I love this about women. So many times we become the resource for the problem that we confronted. We're okay, there's got to be a healthier, more proactive, resource-filled way to do this. How can I be a part of that? How can my story impact that? And that's exactly what you've done here. When it comes to talking about, living out of our own expectations versus others, you've talked about that too, where there's expectations about what we think, or who we think, or what age group we think, or, pick your category of what we think sleep issues are going to look like. versus the truth of them? What is the biggest like expectation that you've run into that you're like, no, that is not actually true? I know that's what you expected and that's what you've heard and that's been the narrative out there, but let me tell you what's actually happening.
Yeah, so I mean, there's so many ways for me to tackle this question. Like I think, you know, on a personal on a personal matter, like in terms of living out like your own expectations versus others, one of the shift into getting into this mission oriented world was I mean, before this, I had spent a decade in corporate America. I was at JP Morgan, eBay, Google, and Airbnb. And, you know, that
The big ones.
the big ones, you know,
Yeah.
and they were really exciting places to be where it's like I had exciting careers. Like I look back at in 2018 when I was my last year at Google, and it's like I was running an international team and like going to Asia a couple times a year and Europe. And I'm like, honestly, like this is pretty good. But like when it comes to listening to your own expectations, again, it was after I had my child, there was just something, a voice in me that's like, there's more for you. There's more for you here. And it's like, it's not this path. And so at the time I was on maternity leave. I was advising this company, Expectful. And I was having a really big impact. And the founder said, hey, I think you would do a better job at running this company than I would. Would you consider taking it over? And I was like, oh my God, I've never thought to leave. You want me to leave Airbnb to take on this small startup? Like, no, that's not my path. But I think part of growing up is listening to your internal script and your internal voice and giving yourself permission to actually follow your own path. Because I had these voices, like I couldn't sleep at night. It was saying, Nathalie, you gotta try this. You have to take this path. And finally, like the voices just got so loud that it's like, okay, I'm going to take this path. And the worst thing that's going to happen is I go on it and I fail. I'm going to come back to exactly where I am today.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do. And so like, that was internally how I got to the comfort of like living out my own expectations versus others. And then like, I mean, I think this is such a great question too, because when you think about living out your own expectations versus others, like I think that there's, especially with sleep, there's this narrative that women, we should have it all together, that like we can sleep, we can take care of our families, we can work, and we can do it all. And that's just such a false narrative. Like so many people are struggling. And I mean, that's the importance of like having, you know, conversations and podcasts like this and being vulnerable about like, here's how I approach it. Here's how I do it. And so I just think that there's like this expectation, like to have it all together. And it's like, no, that could be the expectation, but the reality is that you have to live life on your own terms. Like going back to other advice, it's like you have to prioritize what matters most to you, and then like let your life fill in around that.
Yeah. I love what you said about listening to that inner voice, where I think we're told a lot of times as little girls early on to not trust our inner voice. And that's actually the exact opposite. Trust, it's there to tell you, it's there to inform you. And yes, it can feel scary, but if you don't, I mean, I think it's like when you're measuring that, what you say yes and no to. Can I live with if I say no to this? Or how am I going to 10 years down the road be like, ooh, I should have taken a shot at that? Or can I be like, I know I can come. I know how to do this. I got a ton of experience here. So really don't lose anything by trying this. And it may be the avenue to the life that I didn't even know that I was supposed to lead by trusting that. Yeah, you just never know what's going to unfold with that. Thank you so much. That was such a good explanation of that. When it comes to embracing our layers, I love what you've done with your story, how you've taken it, these tough things that happen with your kiddo and with you, and you've turned it on its head and become a resource for it. And I think that's part of the embracing layers journey. The parts of our story that we love, that we don't love, having an acknowledgement of that and acceptance. I'm like, okay, what do I do with this thing? It's part of my lived experience. It's part of what's happening in my life. So I can, choose to ignore it and stuff it, know that that's not going to work. It's going to keep creeping back in. Or I can go after this thing and figure out resolutions and figure out resources And keeping, for me, the shift for me in my layers journey was that curiosity over judgment. I'm not going to beat myself up. I didn't do anything wrong. Nobody failed at it. We tend to moralize these things sometimes. And it's like, no, this is just a different layer, a different curveball that came my way. So I think you've explained it really well already, but talk to me a little bit more about that embracing layers journey for you.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it a beautiful thing that like we're all humans and I think your superpower as a human is like there's no one else who's like you. And what I've realized is like in the coming of who I am today and who I hope I become in the decades, if I'm so fortunate to live, like beyond here, is that what really makes me shine as a person is like I'm uniquely me. And I have an advantage because I didn't sleep for years. I like also have an advantage because like I'm a Stanford MBA and I think in this certain way. And then also like I'm entrepreneurial and I love building businesses and that I'm a mom. And that when I put all of these layers together, it's like, oh, I'm unstoppable in solving this exact problem because there's no one else like me that has this lived experience. And so, I think oftentimes like there's kind of shame that cultural puts on you that's not ours to hold. That's like, maybe don't embrace it. You're a mom. Don't talk about that. Or like, don't talk that you snore. Like people can't know that you're struggling with sleep or that you're napping every day. It's like, no, actually, like this is a part of who I am. And underneath all of it, this is what is going to make me excel. And I mean, it's easier said than done. It takes a lot of work to get to that level of comfort. But if you can embrace it, I think it will be your superpower.
Yeah, I love that. That was so well explained. People, if you don't take anything else from this today, take that right there. That was so good. Thank you so much for that. In living out feel, what I call feel, finding empowerment, embracing layers, these things that we're talking about today, this framework that of questions and conversations that we've built here in my community to get us to talking about the things we need to be talking about in order to live aligned, healthy, authentically, as we were built to be, not as we were told by outside narratives to be. Talk to me about, you've done that really well. You've listened to yourself well. You've shifted when the time came for you to shift out of this trajectory where you're on. Talk to me about that when you build trust in yourself, I think it builds a sense of your value and what you can do, because you see like, oh, wow. And so talk to me about how that's impacted your relationship with yourself and also your relationship with other people.
Yeah, I mean, this has been the journey of a lifetime, if I'm going to be honest. And it probably will be a journey of a lifetime. But I mean, for me, the first time that I started believing myself was when I listened to that voice, despite everyone, family, a lot of friends, like probably my bank account and my financial advice was like, you should stay, in these executive positions in big tech. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. There was just something behind me. It was like my first win was after I took over my company. I raised $4 million in my first 90 days on the job.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is pretty rare. And I was like, oh, wow. When I strip away, like, expectations and it's like, I just am allowed to do my thing. It's like, wow, a lot of great stuff can happen. And for me, I just personally saw everything compounding. And it was all because I took that initial first step. And then it was like my wins. I got this win where I raised that amount of money. And then it's like, oh, I was like featured in TechCrunch, and then I was like featured in Vogue. Then I signed a big deal. And so they give you more and more confidence. And so I know that it's hard to sometimes take that first leap. I encourage it because the worst thing that happens is that you go back to where you were.
Exactly.
Actually, the worst thing that happens is that you stay in the place that you are and you wake up at 85 and you're like, oh no. I made a mistake. That's the worst truly that could happen. Like if I would have failed, I would be in the same place that I was if I failed. At least I know I would have tried. But once you do that, I think it's like pay attention for those wins because they're going to compound, they're going to feed this. And like honestly, I mean, maybe this is too out there, but I feel like the universe like rewards people who like bet on themselves and step into their power. It certainly rewarded me, and so just, you know, take that first step.
Yeah, I love that so much. I think it's that it goes back to that trusting yourself piece. But when you trust yourself and listen and you're living in alignment, you are healthier all the way around because you don't have that angst within you, wondering, on paper, this all looks good, but something doesn't quite fit. And I feel like when you don't listen to yourself and you listen to all those other practical voices that are, you know, understandably like, stay comfortable here, you're doing great, you miss that opportunity to actually live in alignment with who you are. And that has deeper impacts down the road. You see a lot of midlife crises in 40s, 50s, 60s of people who stayed on the path that looked good on paper, but they didn't make that decision or trust themselves in that opportunity that presented itself earlier. And then, you know, maybe you make that change at that point, but still, it has an impact. It's that time that you've lost. So I talk about all the time. I'm 56 now. I didn't start doing this work. I founded this network. It'll be 5 years ago, this summer. I had no concept this is what I would be doing in my 20s and 30s. It wasn't even remotely close. It came out of a dream wall, but I trusted it. And I had the support network around me to say, yeah, let's see where this lands. Let's see where this goes. And so, yeah, I can't speak enough to that. And because it impacts how you show up in the world when you're living in alignment, how well you show up in your, not only in your work, but your relationships, because you feel like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're living out of your values and you're trusting that.
Yes, I could not agree more. And isn't the world a much better place because you made that choice? I'm going to say yes, it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think so. Everybody wins when we choose to trust us and choose us and not abandon ourselves and listen to the voices outside of us that are well-meaning. Most of the time, they're not meaning you any harm, but they aren't you. And so listen to that voice and that angst and ask yourself those deeper questions and be willing to take that step. When it comes to, as we wrap this up today, talk to me about 5 activities that nourish you.
Okay, well, I would be remiss if I didn't say sleep, but I honestly, I truly mean that. Like, there are many days where I nap. Like, I always get my weekend nap in, and I sleep around 8 hours, or try to get that 8 hours a day, and it allows me to be super sharp and show up in all areas of my life. So sleep is number one. I'm a mindfulness person. I've been meditating since 2000, so for a long time now.
Yeah.
And there's the power of mindfulness. Movement is the third one. Like, I make a commitment to myself to exercise at least 5 days a week. It's just now embedded in who I am. I'm at 4, like getting sunshine and spending time outdoors. And then, you know, the 5th one is just being present and spending time with people that I care about. I mean, that's really why we're here. That's what, you know, life is about. And so those are the things that nourish me and allow me to show up on a daily basis.
Oh, great. All right. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. We're kind of going to come back to a word that came up in your character traits, but give me 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months.
Yeah. So first is I always try to be intentional, present, energized, clarity, and my word for 2026 from my vision board is ascension. So I'm ascending into the best possible version of myself, and that is my active goal this year. So that is my 5th word.
I love that. I love the ascending. I think it's a great visual, and it's across, like, and you talked about wins earlier. And I think that's when we're struggling sometimes, I started doing this a little over a year ago. It's my therapist's suggestion. She's like, you're really great at getting to that next thing and creating it and accomplishing it. And then you just keep moving forward. You don't stop to recognize the wins within that. And you miss the opportunities to celebrate yourself within that. And I think I was like, it wasn't necessarily that I was minimizing anything. I just was on to the next thing. And when you were part of ascension is recognizing those wins in the journey as you're ascending and being mindful of those things. So I love that word. It brings so much to mind when I think about that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love that for you too. It's just, and you've sounds like a really fantastic therapist. Like we all need support people to bring us to our fullest version of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Tell people where they can find you and follow you, find BetterSleep, all those things. These will also all be listed on our website, on our resources page at embracinglayers.com, but share with people right now.
Absolutely. So you can find BetterSleep or bettersleep.com. You can go to any of the app stores and download our app. You can find BetterSleep on social media. We're on Instagram. They handle at BetterSleep. For me personally, you can find me at Nathalie Walton on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn. And I will be sure to create a special offer for your listeners so that they too can experience better sleep.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for that. Okay, that will all be listed, you get listeners, in our show notes and on the embracinglayers.com resources page. Nathalie, one last thought you'd like to leave with our listeners today?
My greatest advice for you is really, I mean, getting back to the whole concept here is of your podcast is to listen to your inner guidance system and embrace your layers because that is your unique superpower. And the sooner that you figure that out and it all clicks, you'll be on your road to who you are meant to be.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Thank you so much for that. Listeners, such a great conversation today. So many great resources here. Go take a look at our resources page. Find and follow all that Nathalie has shared with us. And remember that you are valuable, you are worthy, and you get to choose. Choose you. Get some sleep. I know that I'm working on that too. Take good care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time here on the Feel Podcast. Hello, and thank you so much for being with us today on this episode of the Feel Podcast. If you would like more information on how you can apply these talking points that I share with our guests in each episode to your own life, really utilize this Feel framework, go to embracinglayers.com, fill out our contact form, and let's set up a free 30-minute consultation to talk about how you can start living your most authentic, organic, healthy, feel-fueled life. Thanks again for being with us today. We'll be back to you soon with another episode here on the Feel Podcast.